This is When the Fuck Did I Become Old, the fun, edgy and unapologetically honest podcast about the experiences of ageing, where, as the title suggests, nothing is off the table. I'm your host, Jo Parker, and today I'm joined by Louise Pode, who's a ski mindset coach. Louise, hi, welcome.
Hi, Jo. Thank you very much for having me. Delighted to be here today.
I'm so excited to talk to you because we've just recently had an episode about whether or not you can learn to ski later in life. So it'll be interesting. You know my history a little bit about the traumas of trying to learn to ski age 57 and how I experienced it. But before we go back to that, or we talk around it, how did you become a ski mindset coach?
Oh, well, that's a really interesting question. Not intentionally, I would say. So I find myself in this environment because I was that skier that learned in my late 20s. And I had pretty bad hips at that stage of my life, a condition that I was born with. So I struggled a bit with the physical side of skiing. And then my husband was literally born on a pair of skis, loved it, was very passionate about it. So when we started to have children, obviously the children started to learn when they were 3 and 4. And by that stage, I'd then had both my hips replaced in my early 30s. So again, another barrier. And on we went. And it was really interesting. Over the long period of time, I just built up more and more anxiety about my skiing. And some of that was about the physical environment. I'd find it very intimidating being on the slopes, but also the emotional environment. Sometimes people would just make a comment, not intentionally, but it would really land really badly. And it would just make you feel, oh my goodness, this is so difficult. Well, just like, why are you so slow today? And you think, I'm just doing my best. Just doing my best to. And then 9 years ago now, I had a big skiing accident. I was taken out by a snowboarder at high speed who just disappeared. But the long and the short left me on crutches for 4 months, thought it destroyed one of my hips. And that was my sliding doors moment. By that point, the children were late teens, wanting to do a ski season, absolutely loving it, everybody's favorite holiday. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is literally killing me. What do I do? Do I step away now, or do I find a way through this? And it became really apparent to me as a coach that a lot of this was self-sabotage. But at this point, it wasn't just about my hips. They were a really handy excuse.
Psychological fear.
Yeah, exactly. So I took myself off to become a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, which is about changing mindset. And it worked like magic for me. It was incredible. So 6 weeks down the line, felt very differently about it and was really happy. I'd kind of reached my goal. And then one of the journalists had somebody write into them in one of the weekend papers saying they were a very anxious skier and what could they do about it. And the journalist directed them to these very technical courses that would do nothing about the psychology. I thought, I need to share what I've done because obviously I'm not the only one out there. So that's when I started sharing my strategies and working with different ski companies. And that was 8 years ago now. And it's really grown and grown since then. And it's a sector that I absolutely love. I work with amazing individuals who say to me, I don't know what gives me the courage to do something that frightens me so much. But I now really want to overcome that anxiety. I really want to fall in love with it because I recognize it's the psychology of it that's holding me back, not my technical expertise. So that kind of landed me in the sector. And I think because of my personal experience, I know what it feels like to be on a slope, feeling really stuck. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. But because of my professional background, originally as a physiotherapist and then working in the economic sector, all about the creating an environment to really optimize yourself in. And then the work that I do in mental health and around coaching was those were really good toolkits for me to use and have given me a really good platform to be able to step forward and really support and enable a lot of people to overcome their anxiety.
And you've niched it down a bit, haven't you? You've niched it down because you've in your coaching, you've discovered that there is something going on for women age 45 plus. Is that
yes, well, women, I would say 95% of my clients all learned to ski in their late 20s, early 30s, going forward from that or in their 40s. So, and the majority of my clients will be over 40, but it's opened a really interesting window on women and anxiety. It's fascinating because women are amazing. We are such a rich resource. But when you start to hit your 40s, from what I've seen, there's a tendency more to step back than to step forward. And I think men deal with that side of life very differently.
Hence the midlife crisis, get a motorbike, get a leather jacket.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say the male midlife crisis these days is more about the carbon fiber bike, the lycra, and that kind of external validation of
Yeah.
youthfulness that you can
Yes,
still do a
you're true.
triathlon or an Ironman. And, whereas women, some women do that, but a lot of women will perhaps stop driving at night, or they'll stop skiing, or they'll stop doing things in their life because of anxiety. And I'm a real champion for don't let that anxiety stop you.
So why do you think that happens to us then?
Oh, I think that's such a complex question, Jo. I think it's really interesting. I think there are lots of things. Obviously, the menopause sits in there, but I feel that medicalizes it. I think culturally, women, where we have historically really invested our time, are in areas that aren't necessarily that well recognized in society or applauded. So, being caregivers and supporters and facilitators, and a lot of women of certainly my generation have grown up where, we've modified and held back our careers in order to support our families to get to where they need to be. And by the time they're stepping away and we have this kind of space in our life, it can be really difficult to put yourself first and think about what you want, and what's best for you, because you've spent so many years or decades doing it for other people. I think that can make it really hard. And I think in society as well, just over the hundreds of years, that it's always been the men are the adventurers, the risk takers, the women are the protectors, and that kind of becomes really almost genetically embedded, I think, in women to a degree. I'm really it's opened a really interesting area and something that I would like to do some more research in, because I think it's fascinating, and there hasn't been a lot of research in that area, funnily enough.
And going back to what you just said is that before we started recording, we were talking about it. I mean, even though it's a sport for everyone, it does tend to be male dominated or kids dominated, but male dominated. And therefore, a woman learning or relearning or revisiting the slopes is intimidated by, I was intimidated by everybody else around me being, 57 years old, and I'm in the beginners and I can't bloody do it. And, and then I hurt myself. So yeah, it's intimidating because I'm not the only one, am I, that finds
No,
it?
not at all, not at all. And I think there are different issues here. I think learning anything like this when you're older is really challenging. And there's almost this expectation that we should just be able to do it. But we don't have that. We have that sense of fear. We have these inbuilt mechanisms well established in them by then. Whereas as a 3-year-old, you don't, or a 4-year-old. If I taught you to learn how to walk now, you'd be horrified. You'd be like, I'm not going to do that. I'll fall over.
True.
I can't possibly learn to walk. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Whereas a toddler just does it naturally.
And then falls over and picks it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have those inbuilt self-protect mechanisms that make it much harder for us. And I think also the environment. I mean, I think historically it's been a very male-orientated environment. And it's interesting that, if you go on a flight to Geneva, it's 90% men at the moment. And it's the boys' trips on the slopes, some women's trips, but not that many, not in comparison, which is really interesting that it's like that, because it is such an amazing sport to be part of.
And do you think as women it's a self-sabotaging intimidation, or do you think it's because men make comment like, why are you going so slowly and things like that? Do you think combination?
I think it's complex. I think it's a combination of lots of different things. I think that women-only trips are really growing now, particularly women's solo trips, and that's because women, if you're in an all-female environment, it takes away the judgment and it takes away the pressure. And I think that makes a really big difference. And I think something like skiing, there is that technical expertise, but psychology plays such a large part in it. And if you're stepping into it with some anxiety, then it distorts everything. You're more rigid, you don't relax, you tend to lean back and create a reality of it feeling like you're out of control the whole time, which is terrifying, let's be honest, on a mountain, isn't it? We've both experienced that. And so overcoming that and finding the right environment to do that is really, really key. And so much of it is the environmental issues. Because when you learnt, Jo, you'd have stepped out there thinking, go on, I'll give this a go. Looks amazing. Who wouldn't want to be in the Alps? But then the reality of it can play out very, very differently.
So my reality was, I had been told by my lovely boyfriend that it was simple. Wrong, don't tell me. It's a bit like learning to drive. When you drive, it's simple. But when you start driving, you've got to remember everything that goes with it. And then the fact that I should be able to do it, to master it quite quickly, was really played on my mind. And so I spent the first 3 days literally sweating buckets to try and master it and hurting myself. And then because I hurt myself and I fell over and I couldn't stop, I was obviously in the position where I was rigid and fearful of falling over again. So the whole thing was just one thing after another, which I piled onto myself. And my lovely cousin, before I went, who is a skier, said, you know, the worst accidents happen when you're tired. So when you're tired, don't do anything. So the day 4, knackered. I was absolutely knackered from the whole stress of it. I just said, I'm not doing it. Not doing it today. Just leave me alone. I'll meet you for lunch type thing, which kind of gave me a step back. But the whole atmosphere was lovely, but it was Christmas. So therefore, and we were really lucky with the snow, really lucky with the sun, and the whole environment was beautiful, but really packed. And so therefore, the fear of being bumped into or bumping into somebody else on the slopes. And then that whole thing about being the slow person and being the older person in the ski school and the whole thing. So it's one thing after another. My experience of it wasn't the best I could have had, I don't think. And I don't actually know how I would overcome that and whether or not a lot of it is situational or whether or not it's psychological.
I think it's a combination of both. And I think if you were to go back and do that again and you were to go to one of those lovely little quiet Italian resorts for a long weekend, so that you're not having to deal with other skiers, because that is really, really stressful. And if you were to do it so that actually the expectation is that you wouldn't be skiing by the end of the week, because actually it's a very technical sport to do. It's very complex, and actually just to feel comfortable on a pair of skis over the first 3 or 4 days, so you can just glide gently on them and could get some feel of it. And I think the way that you're taught as well is really important, because certainly I find with the instructors I work with my clients is that they use what I would call experiential skiing. So they're listening to the sound. So you listen to the sound of your skis and you feel, using feel and sound rather than bend your knees here, pole plant there, lean this way, lean that way, because it's a really complex set of instructions to put a turn in or to do a parallel turn. But if you can just start to tune into the senses and the feel and the sound, it takes your mind away from the things that you would judge yourself against and just lets you relax into it and kind of be mindful in the moment, just get that feel of it. Because let's be honest, to put a pair of planks on your feet and go up on a mountain on a slope is a really big deal.
Yeah, it's a really big deal.
Big deal. And I think acknowledging that. So I think expectations on ourselves can sometimes be too great.
And then when you've got 10 to 12 people in the class as well, so yeah, all being taught the same thing and learning it in the same way. So if I were to come to you pre-going onto a ski trip, I'm not asking you, although it would be lovely for you to coach me now, but I'm not asking you to. But in terms of how you would deal with somebody coming to you going, do you know, like, I'm 50 odd, I'm scared to go back on the slopes, and I'm talking female. How would you approach that in terms of the coaching that you would give? What do you offer to somebody who does, like you, want to get back up on the skis and get going, but has not got the confidence or that is frightened?
My first question to you, Jo, would be why? Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah.
What is it that's drawing you back into something that you've obviously found quite frightening, that creates anxiety? What is it that is wanting to get you back out on the slopes? Because that why is really, really important. If you recognise actually it's about the beauty of the mountains, or it's about having fun with my partner, or it's about being with a family, whatever it is that is drawing you back and that is so important, because it's so much easier to step away and go to the Canaries instead.
Isn't it?
Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so much easier. But so it's really understanding what is driving you and motivating you is that very first piece. And then we do a series of coaching sessions, so you really build on that. And then it's understanding what are you looking to come out of this? What's your goal, and how will you know when you've got there? And that goal isn't about, I want to be able to ski a blue run. It's about how you want to feel, and how will you know when you've got that feeling, because that is really aligned with your core values and motivators. It becomes so much more powerful. So that, for example, if a client might say to me, I want to ski red. And it's like, okay, that's a very kind of clear objective goal. Let's understand the why. Why do you want to ski red? And it turns out they want to ski red because that's where their family skis, and they never ski with their family. They're always separated off from the family. And their goal is to be on a chairlift laughing with a husband, two sons, having just done a run together. And that becomes a very different type of goal. That's much more attached to your core values, what's truly important to you. And then, so creating that goal is really important. But I'd say that all my clients, I always have a conversation with them first, because it's really important that they have that inner motivation to do this. They really want it. They're not doing it for somebody else. They're not doing it because their family have told them to do it, or their partner. They're doing it because they really want it, because that's what you need to create that internal shift. And it's so liberating once you create that shift and you can release yourself from that level of anxiety, because it's huge and it can be so overwhelming and so terrifying. It's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. But and changing your mindset is like going to the gym. You know, it's something you really work at the strategies. You really work at keeping your mind over here in this really calm, happy place, rather than allowing it to sit in that very anxious space that keeps building and building when you're on the slopes.
And having a why obviously then makes it much more emotionally led rather than sort of like fear
Yeah.
based.
Yes. Oh
This is
yes.
why
Yeah.
I'm doing it, so I'll do it
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than yeah.
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 And a really good example, I've just come back.
Mhm.
We had 4 days in Courchevel. It was beautiful, fresh snow, sunshine, stunning. And we did this big run and we got to the top. It was Mont Vallon, so it's the highest one of the highest peaks. And it was a red run. And we got out of the cable car and I'm not good with heights. I suddenly had this whoosh, this feeling of anxiety rising up. And I was like, whoa. And so I just took myself off and I went and looked at the view and just reminded myself what all this was about for me. And I took some really big deep breaths and I just breathed in that fresh alpine air that was so, you could feel it on your cheeks, just really inhaled it into my lungs, just really energized me. And then I just said, Lou, you've got this. You know, you ski coach, you are absolutely going to be fine here. You love skiing reds. This is just a red. It just happens to be high up. And actually, that means the snow's going to be so much better. And I'm just going to focus on the way forward with this. And so just using quite simple strategies enabled me to take my mind from flipping over to that anxious state, putting it back into a calmer, logical state, and then just going. So not launching at the top, just going, and had the most incredible run.
Oh
Absolutely
wow.
loved it. Absolutely loved it. But back in the day, I would have been going back down on the cable car. I
Would
wouldn't have
you?
been able to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So
So
it's really empowering to be able to
yeah.
do that. So now you have strategies that work for you.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's a bit of cognitive behavioural therapy, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
pinging your elastic band and going, yeah, you got this. So you also say we talk about skiing being so inclusive for all levels. It isn't really, is it? I mean, I'm the
No, it's
beginner and everybody
not.
else is off
Yeah.
skiing. You talk about that woman who wanted to do the red, who's got
Yeah.
2 sons and a husband who are doing reds. Up to the point where she saw you, she wasn't part of the family, was she? Even though she was out there with them, there was like hours of the day where she's learning.
And I'm a great believer, and I really champion this with my
Mhm.
clients, is that skiing should be a hybrid model. It shouldn't just be about the best skiers skiing together, that at some point every day, the group should ski together. And certainly for my clients who've got young children who are learning to ski, I say to them every day, you should ski with your husband and your children, even if it's just one run. So your children grow up expecting it to be a hybrid model, that you can have mixed levels of skiers. So I ski with my family, and I ski like a woman of my age who's had her hips replaced, and I really love my skiing now. But I'm not your svelte somebody who can come nipping down some cool wow. I'll do my reds and I'll do the old black, and I
Yeah.
love it. But my family, my husband is an elite skier. The children, one's a ski instructor, one's done a season, and the other's been a powder queen since she was 4. They are extraordinary skiers. But we ski together most of the time. We have such fun, and they duck and dive and do their other stuff. And it creates such an amazing family experience, that's so special. And I think I look back and I think if I hadn't chosen to overcome my anxiety, I would have missed out on all that. And to be able to look forward to skiing with grandchildren, and by the time grandchildren come along, you know, yeah, I think as a woman, I will modify my skiing, but I will want to be on those greens and blues with my
Interesting you said as a
grandchildren.
woman. Do you don't think
Yeah, no,
men?
that's
Oh
so
my
interesting.
God, Louise, you're
Yeah,
still
that's so interesting. You see what I mean about it
absolutely.
embedded in us.
So as
That's
a
so
woman,
true.
yeah, as a woman. So if you were a man, which of course
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to relate to, but men don't feel that way, do you think?
I
Because
don't know, they don't.
when do they stop? When do
My
they think
husband would
my
say like
hips are
that.
going to give up or
Well,
my knees?
Joe, that's interesting you say that. So Jean Bernard, who is a Swiss friend of ours, so his wife was my husband's au pair, so they're now in their late 70s, early 80s. He skis with us every year. He did his 70th season this year. He's 78. He's 78. He's done 70 seasons, and he's not stopping yet. He said, I stretch at the beginning of every season. I make sure my body's all right, and I go, and I love it.
Oh wow. What about her? Does she ski?
No, Josette's never skied.
She's never skied.
No, she's
Oh,
never skied.
Did she never want to? She's not got
No,
a
never wanted
strong
to.
enough
Never
why.
wanted to.
Interesting,
No.
interesting. So it does. You don't absolutely have to if your partner's a avid skier.
You don't.
So, do you see men as clients then?
So I have not had any one-to-one coaching clients with men. I've run masterclasses at Tamworth Snowdome where there've been a group of 8 and had 5 men, really interesting, great men who are older, men who are coming back into it, post-knee replacement, hip replacement. Um, and I do get men coming to talk to me about it, but just don't get the same traction as you do with women. Maybe that's because I'm a woman. I don't know.
So, can we talk to you about possibility of being coached, but not taking you up on it?
Yeah, so they would come and talk to me about. So I had one gentleman who came to me, and he said, "Oh, I skied in my 20s, never had any lessons, didn't need lessons. We'd just go for it. Me and my friends, we loved it. We skied too fast." And then he said they all carried on, and I stopped for 20 years, and they invited me back in my 50s. So I said I went back, and he said, "Oh, so slow in comparison." I couldn't believe it. So I took myself off to do a Basie level 1, so one of the teaching qualifications. So I really wanted to refine my technique, get really good. And he said, "That was great. I love that." And he said, "I'm just taking on Basie level 2." And he said, "You have to do a mogul field." And when I did the mogul field last year, I tore my ACL and I had to have surgery. And so he said, "Now I'd go back and look at the mogul fields, and it makes me really, really anxious. But I really want to do my Basie level 2. Can you help me?" And I said, "No, I can definitely help you with that." He said, "I have one more problem." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I really struggle with skiing backwards as well." That's like, yeah, me too. So by this time he was in his late 60s
Oh,
and he'd
wow.
done his Basie 2 and he was really wanting to hone his ability to ski backwards.
So, because you need, well, my experience of instructors, they need to be able to ski backwards because my instructor, bless her, had to ski in front of me a lot backwards to try and get me to stop. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was such a different mindset around skiing though. And interesting as my confidence has really grown and I love it. I'm now thinking about going to do a 3-day ski clinic next year.
Oh,
Next
wow.
season, so I can really hone it.
So what's a 3-day ski clinic look like?
So it's a ski clinic that's being run in Val d'Isere, and you can do a 3-day, a 7-day, or a 10-day. And basically, it's all about it's almost like having group lessons that are honed to your skill level to really develop your skills, so you can really keep improving your technical ability. Because now I'm so I do love my skiing, but I'm feeling because I spent 30 years skiing with anxiety, it does kind of embed in your technique somewhat. And so to be able to change some of those habits, I'm now thinking that would be a really exciting thing to do. I'd really love to do that, which is, and that's that growth mindset.
Well done.
How
Yeah.
can I learn more? Well, I would never have done that before, ever.
Oh,
under
before you
any
did the NLP on
circumstances.
it.
Yeah,
Before-
no, never. Yeah.
So, what do you offer people as a coach? So, if I wanted to be coached by you, how there's 3 ways of doing it. If I'm right.
So with the ski coaching, I do the most powerful one is where I do 5 coaching sessions. We do that when you have a holiday already booked. So you might be going away at half term or at Easter. And for the 3 or 4 weeks leading up to it, we go through a series of coaching sessions, which are really bespoke and tailored to you, because my role as a coach is enable you to find your way through this using your aspirations, your experiences, your fears, your challenges. And the whole essence of the coaching is to take your mind away from that really anxious space and put you in that really calm, happy space in your mind and use strategies to keep you over that. And if you find yourself being flipped back over really suddenly, which we do, when that fear really grips you, that you've got really good strategies to get yourself back in so that you feel psychologically safe, which is really, really important. But then I have clients who are going on holiday, say in 10 days' time, who's like, "What can you help me? I'm really
Help me
terrified."
now.
Oh my goodness. So I then developed a power hour, which is really powerful. So that's much more practical. And so that is, I'll ask a client for their reflections ahead of time about where their key anxieties are. And then I'll develop a power hour together where we'll really look at some really powerful strategies they can use in the moment. And then they'll get a summary of that. So that gives them something really tangible and objective to take away with them. Because so much of this is about feeling back in control.
Completely. And skiing is by the nature of the fact that you're whizzing down a mountain, you are out of control.
Yeah.
So is everybody else around you.
And I've just developed an online self-guided coaching
Oh,
course, which I'm going
okay.
to release next season.
Fantastic.
Because there are certain strategies that you can use, but this is done in 8 modules, and it's got all the exercises that go along with it, because it just makes it a more accessible price point, because I'm a believer in enabling as many people as possible. Just written a book with one of the ski journalists, Rob Stewart, through Cowood Press, which will be released next autumn as well, which again talks about the strategies. And so those are the key areas.
And you did the
that we're working
Tamworth
with it.
thing as well.
Oh yes, so I do masterclasses.
Right.
So I've done one at Tamworth, and we're just looking at setting some up over the summer at Hemel Hempstead as
Oh,
well.
fabulous. That's closer to me. Yay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
yay.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Right.
that's really powerful, because that's working with the ski instructor. So it's time coaching. So really working around that whole mindset piece, then putting that into practice on the slope, and then coming back and then really honing that and understanding what's working for you and what isn't working for you. And then
So how does that work? If I do an on-site thing with you, what would
so somewhere like at Hemel
Hemel
Hempstead,
Hempstead, how would you? How is it a day? Is it a few
yes,
days?
so the Hemel Hempstead one, we're looking at doing it as a day. So it'll be starting at 10, it'll finish at about 4, and it's a hybrid model. So it's a coaching, so to really enable you to understand your mindset and understand your challenges and how to overcome them, and then practicing them
And put us on the
on
slopes
the
and
slopes. Yeah, and then regrouping. And the power of that is the group dynamic is amazing, and it's the support of other people. And I think it's a reassurance that you're not the only one.
yeah.
It's really good to know.
Well,
It's
because
really good to
when
know.
you're the oldest person in the ski school, you do feel like you're the only one. Everybody else is off having a great time. You do feel like you're the only one, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, put me down for that. Put me down for that.
I will do. I will do.
Fantastic.
But it's really interesting, Joe, you say that, because I would say the other side of the coin is how amazing that you decided to give that a go, and how proud you should be that you were the oldest one there, that you were out there, that you were cracking it, and that it's not easy and it's really, really challenging you. But you were going back and you were really working at it. And I think sometimes it's easy to focus on the negative and to feel it gives us a negative identity. Whereas I say, that's amazing, Joe. That's so correct. It's like, good for you. That's
Isn't it
brilliant.
interesting?
You're a role model.
As a woman, we are taught to do that. We're taught to look at the negative and put ourselves down, aren't we? It's like that's something that for our generation rather than the upcoming generation is like, no, you are, you're not, look at the negative. You didn't do very well this time, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I have a philosophy about most things. I'll try something once. Obviously, if it's really dangerous, I'm not going to do it, but I will try something once. If I don't like it, I won't do it again. But the skiing thing for me is, I wish I had liked it, but I didn't. So maybe I think the Hemel Hempstead thing would do me a lot of good. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think, when you do get back out on the slopes, as I say, it's finding somewhere quiet, somewhere really beautiful, where the skiing is just one piece of that time away, that it's about having a break in a beautiful alpine environment with lovely food, somewhere lovely to stay. So you don't feel that pressure, and you can just do it at your own pace and just enjoy it for what it is, and just let it build. Because the more you can spend time just really relaxing into it, the easier it is to access that space in your mind. Whereas once you start to associate it with anxiety, it's really hard to flip it out of that.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so where can people find information about your courses and about your soon to be published book?
So on my website, which is www.louisepode.com. So
Fantastic.
PODE.
I'll pop it in the notes
details
as well
there.
so that people can find it.
And I'm always posting on my Instagram, which is at Coaching with Lou, LOU.
Fabulous.
I'm always putting tips there. And I'm just about to start doing newsletters to all my clients, because ski coaching is one part of my coaching. I do a lot of personal development coaching, and I do a lot of resilience training in the NHS and in the aviation sector. So I have quite a broad skill set there. And so there are lots of different ways that you can find me, and I post information about that.
Can we sign up to your newsletter on your website?
Yes, you can do.
Brilliant.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put the website information in the show notes. And before we leave, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you about ski coaching and getting back on the slopes?
No, I think you've been really comprehensive, and I would say for me, my big takeaway of the last 8 years is that when you overcome your anxiety, it is really liberating, and it enables you to make choices. And now I can make choices about, say, ski runs, and say, is that run is not for me today, and I can walk away with my head held high, feeling strong. And I think be able to create that shift internally to manage anxiety to such a level that you feel really empowered and you make the right decisions for you is really powerful. And it's taken me a long time in my life to get there. And actually, the ski coaching is the one thing that has been transformational for me. And when I say to my clients that, 10 years ago, I was a really anxious skier, and I'm now literally leading, international clates. I have clients in Sydney and in Canada, that it becomes endless possibility.
That's
It's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, it is.
Fantastic.
My Sydney client is in Moorzean at the moment, having a lovely time with
Oh,
people.
wow. How lovely. Oh, how lovely. Well, that is inspirational in as much as you've been there and look at you now. There's hope for the rest of us.
No, definitely. Yes. I'm
Fantastic.
happy to help. I'm here to help.
Fantastic. And as I say, I'll put all your notes in how to get hold of you in the show notes. But Louise, thank you. And I look forward to our time in Hemel Hempstead.
For sure. Look forward to it too, Jo. Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Oh, you're really welcome.